welcome to another episode of the Don't Argue with the Facts podcast. I'm your host, Noah Love, and today, the College Football Week 8 reaction show. Loaded. Straight loaded show after a great week of college football. The new AP Top 25 is out. We'll discuss that at the end of the video. We'll talk about Vandy being a potential college football playoff team. We'll talk about that. We will also talk about some wackiness that happened in the ACC this week in terms of some teams losing and how a potential scenario can happen where maybe, just maybe, they could get 3 teams in the playoff. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Georgia-Ole Miss shootout. We will talk about that. We will talk about the Big 12 being wacky. BYU undefeated. Texas Tech going down to Arizona State. We will talk about that. We will also be talking about Notre Dame and how they're almost a college football playoff lock. We will be talking about all that and more on this episode of the Don't Argue with the Facts podcast. Let's start from the top. You know how we do it here. Let's start from the top. Friday nights usually is the nights with college football where it's an ed matchup. It's an ed. We usually try not to get into it a lot because the Saturday slate's so loaded, but we gotta talk about this one. Louisville. Jeff Brom does it again. On the road, they stun Miami 24-21. This football game, man, Louisville was in control of it pretty much the entire way. Look, a wacky look, those Friday night games in the ACC, if you're a ranked team, I'm going to pick you to go down from this point on because it's wacky. Chris Bell had himself a day, 9 for 136 for 2 touchdowns. Miller Moss played very, very good. Key thing, he didn't turn the football over. 23 of 37, 248, had 2 touchdowns. The key in this game was I was really shocked that Louisville was winning the trenches and really controlling the trenches. That was most surprising to me. That's really where they won the game. And we could talk about Miller Moss, Chris Bell. We could talk about the good job the defense did, but they won in the trenches. Also, Miami. I do think they'll be fine. I do. But this is bad. UGA Carson Beck showed up. 4 interceptions. Carson Beck cost them this football game. There's no 2 ways around it. He did. There's no 2 ways around it. He cost them the football game. 4 interceptions. I'm thinking, okay, Florida State, are they going to go undefeated? I said, at SMU, it is tricky. I thought they're into the season at VT at Pittsburgh, and then if they go to the ACC title game, that's like 3 cold weather games in a row for a Miami team. Tricky. I'm looking at the ACC now here. We'll get to Georgia Tech in a minute because they're 7-0 for the first time since like I think it's like the 60s or 70s. Crazy. This ACC, I mean, in terms of the title race, look, Miami, they're obviously, they don't have another bye. They finished their ending schedule is Stanford at SMU, Syracuse, NC State, at Virginia, at Pitt. So that's going to be hard. That I don't want to say hard, but they're going to be favored. Should win those games at SMU. Tricky game. SMU, since moving to the ACC, has not lost a game. They haven't lost a game. SMU still is in play for an ACC title game. Again, the ACC and Big 12 are wacky. Yeah, wacky, but Miami will be fine. But I want to stay on Louisville. Louisville could be a 6-0 football team right now. Had that tough loss a couple weeks ago against Virginia before the bye. Could very well be a 6-0 football team now right now. Now, granted, they play kind of three. I mean, James Madison's good, but the other Eastern Kentucky Bowling Green, But you just beat Miami, which is your statement win. Louisville's got pretty schedule coming up manageable. Look, they play the two worst teams in the ACC in my opinion. You got Boston College and Vodtech. There's a good chance you'll be 7-1 walking out of that, and then you got Cal. Your remaining stretch run, that's Cal, Clemson, at SMU, Kentucky. 3 games at home. 3 out of the 4 at home. The one at SMU. The one at SMU could be huge. Could decide who goes to the ACC title game, but that massive. It's a massive win for the program. It's his biggest win since he's been there. I don't remember a bigger win than this. I mean, just find the college football. It's so great finding a way to win. Look, I thought Miami. I thought the category was okay. It goes Ohio State, Indiana, Miami in terms of the elite teams, and this kind of cluster after that. Might need to change that. I think it's Ohio State, Indiana, and then kind of a cluster after that. Bama's probably the third best team in there. Maybe, A&M. But, yeah, it's a tough loss for Miami, but I do believe they'll bounce back. They'll finish 11-1, but they're not in control of their own destiny. A team that is in control of their own destiny in that same exact conference is Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech 27-18. They just keep winning. I said, look, we said on the predictions video, I said I'll predict them to win, but it's a tricky game. They won. They did. They just keep. Georgia Tech keeps finding ways to win. I picked Georgia Tech to go to the ACC title game before the year. I did. And they're still there. Haynes King, 14-21, 205. He had no touchdowns in terms of passing, but he had one on the ground. He was good. Darian Mensah for Duke played very well as well. You know I'm high on him. But that Georgia Tech defense, there was a couple of special teams errors that Duke had that really ended up costing them big time, obviously. But look, just finding a way to win. That's what Georgia Tech has done all season. You go back to the Colorado game and really starting off shaky early, finding a way to win that. Finding a way to beat Clemson at home. With Clemson storming back and you have to do the fire drill and they kick it and it's good and they win that. The game at Wake Forest, having to find a way to win that in overtime. They have just continuously this year found ways to win. And I'm looking at their schedule. There is a good chance they'll be 11-0 going into that Georgia game. And look, that last year it's a war. That game's going to be a war again. Georgia Tech, I think they're going to the ACC title game. I thought that before season even started. I said, look, manageable schedule. They're really good. I think they're going to do it. Who will they meet there? Virginia's still undefeated. There is a path for them. Obviously Miami's still in play. Because they're 1-1. They've only played 2 ACC games. They got to play more. In college football, it can be chaotic. SMU, they also kind of control their own destiny. They have to obviously keep winning. They could put themselves right back into the playoffs if they just win out, which is not like inconceivable. It is a weird. ACC it's a weird conference right now. But Georgia Tech the looks to be the cream of the crop. Then I still think Miami is the cream of the crop as well, but it was a tough loss for them. All right, let's go to the Big Ten now because I want to get to this. Michigan beats Washington 24-7. I was watching this football game and we talked about it and we said, look, people kind of they were starting to be like, "Oh, is Michigan like Sharon Moore? Is he the right guy?" Bad loss against USC, bad loss at Oklahoma this season, out physical. That wasn't Michigan football. Well, Michigan football came back. Bryce Underwood's progressing nicely. He played a very good game against the Huskies. He was 21, 27, 230, 2 touchdowns. He protected the football. They got back to old Michigan football. They ran the ball 40 times. Jordan Marshall had 25 carries for 133 and a touchdown. But what won them the game was the defense. The defense was spectacular all day. The pick in when Washington was backed up, the back-to-back interceptions for Michigan, you then go down, make it 21 ball game. Ball game. That was ball game. So good. It was a really, really good job by that defense of the Michigan Wolverines. Played a lot of man. They really ran a lot of 4-man rushes. They blitzed some, again, just mixing it up. Wink Martindale, still as good as anybody in terms of the defensive coordinator realm. Michigan is still a really good football team. I will say this once again. Michigan, look, this year I thought they'd miss out potentially on the playoff. Schedule was tough. It's not great. There is a good look. They have 2 losses. There's a good chance they walk in 9-2 before the game. I know at Michigan State is tricky. I know, look, they should stomp Purdue, and then at Northwestern, at Maryland, those are tricky games because Northwestern, look, they're on the verge of being bowl eligible. They have 1 loss in the conference, so they're technically in the Big Ten title race, air quotations. And then look at Maryland. Maryland, they're always scrappy. It just every year. So that's that. Look, they could be 9-2 walking into the game. So the playoffs aren't completely off the table. I think, especially if you beat Ohio State and Ohio State's still undefeated, which they most likely will be. I don't think they're dead. I think they can slowly kind of make a late push for it. But if the defense can play like they similarly to what they played against Washington, they'll be fine. I think Underwood, look, they're going to have to upgrade the receiving room. But they came out with game plan. Again, running the football, controlling the time of possession. Underwood didn't ask him to be Superman, just ask him to be efficient. And that's going to be their recipe for success this season. And Washington, that's a pretty good, I think that's a decent football team over there. Pretty bordering on good football team over there. And that's a decent offense. They were able to hold them down. Good. They have a good running attack. Jonah Coleman, one of the better backs in the country, and they really held him down. So good job by the Wolverines. Now, let's get to the headliner of that, just like early noon. Vandy. What? Vandy. Vandy. You can say it's an upset. I wouldn't really call it that. Whatever, but upset sounds good. Vandy, for the first time since 1990, upsets LSU. They beat LSU 31-24. Let's just talk about it. Pavi as a stud. He, in this football game, Vanderbilt, I thought the way they ran the ball was very complex. The I think Vandy's got some NFL talent on this football team. This is not the same old. This is not, oh, it's a cute story. No, Vandy's here, and Vandy's here to freaking ball. That's what they're here for. They're here. They're here to ball. They're here to prove to you, yeah, we are legit. Okay, we beat Bama last year. We finished 6-6. We're not the same football team as last year. We went in. South Carolina was ranked top 10. Beat them. Oh, you still don't believe in us? Watch this. And they beat LSU. LSU. Hey man, Kelly, Lord Kelly, this is bad, but I'm still gonna talk about Vanderbilt. I said the way they ran the ball was complex. 239 yards on the ground. If you're great Vandy, we know their O line, they can move. They've been moving people. I think the one thing where they're different from last year is they're more explosive of an offense. They can create chunk plays more. I don't think I don't think they had the ability to do that consistently last season. So I think that's a place where they're different. But let's just switch over to the LSU side of this. Kelly, you're done. You're done, man. You're done, man. You're done. Ah, people are saying he's getting fired. Look, they can rattle off 5 straight because they have the talent and they can make the playoff and they can go and do things. But let's be honest, Brian Kelly era was like, it's been a failure. Look, you got to you. I say they can do this, and then I'm looking at the schedule. You got Texas A&M at home. Then you're at Bama. You got Arkansas, Western Kentucky. Yeah, you should win those. And then you're at Oklahoma. I mean, look, you can make you can if now you have to win out. I don't think you can afford another loss, but I don't see how you make it out. You're playing the two best teams in in the conference back to back, so that's going to be hard. Look, in terms of this football game, it just didn't. You can't blame the offense for this one. You can't blame them. Look, Nuss is fighting his heart out. The O line's not helping. The O line's not helping. The O line still got some issues. Look, I thought they ran the ball better. But it's not saying. But it's not saying much. Look, Xavier Thomas at the big play. Look, it was a lot of quick game. And it was a lot of quick game because they know their offensive line cannot hold their water at the point of attack right now. That's just, again, it's the same. Again, it's the same issues as last season for the offense. We cannot, our defense, they've been really good the entire season. This was their worst game, obviously. It was bad. No question. The offense. We play for Louisiana State University and we can't consistently run the football. We're getting outrushed by Vandy. We can't hold our water at the point of attack running on the defensive line. We can't hold our water. Vandy's just gashing us running the football. Pavia's gashing us as well. With just gashing us. And then on the other side, we can't run the football consistently. We're still eliminated. Like, it's a joke, man. You can't make it up. Nuss is trying. I don't blame Nuss for a lot of the issues. Again, We talked about it coming into the year in the preview. We said, look, if you can't run the football, if your O line's still struggling, and you consistently can't are in third and eights every single week, LSU, you're you're probably not going to be a playoff team in this conference. That's just kind of what it is. Again, the defense didn't play well. I don't know what their deal was. Blake Baker, they usually been great. Now look, I know they miss weeks, but you still got Harold Perkins Jr. on that defense. His brother is a real Weeks brother, West Weeks. He plays his freaking heart out. He's still a really good player. Again, their DBs are still good. It's they had sometimes you have a bad day, and I think that's what it was for them. But I'm just talking about specifically LSU. I put this in my notes. I said LSU can't put it together this season. They just haven't been able to put it together. You look at the Clemson game. Okay, it's they put it together in the second half in terms of defense and offense, and they had a touchdown take away, but against Florida. Your offense struggling, still can't run the ball. Nuss is struggling, but your defense is holding. But your defense is holding up. South Carolina, same thing. Now against Vandy, your offense seems like it's playing well and getting a rhythm. Now your defense can't hold up. Like when or if they are ever going to put it together. And look, this is a good Vandy team. And look, this is one thing that I'll say about Vandy. A lot of people keep asking the question, how is Vandy this good? Or like, what is Vandy doing? Like, man, Vandy? Here is my response to that. I think you're asking the wrong questions. I think you're asking how is Vandy this good? How do you beat Vandy? That's the real question. How do you beat Vandy? I think it's the question teams play them at. Not how are they good? How do you beat them? Bama beat. How do you beat them? That should be the question. In that game next week, game day's going to be there. That game next week against Missouri. Missouri survived against Auburn. Hugh Freeze, you're done. Uh, that game against Missouri's big time because the winner has the inside track to the playoff. So it's the biggest game it's the biggest game in the Clark Lee era, I think, to this point. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I think it's the biggest game in one of the biggest games in the Drinkwitz era, because a lot of people are gonna be talking about Vandy this, Vandy that the whole week. Mizzou's 6-1 too, and Mizzou's a very good football team. For Mizzou, it's okay. And we'll talk about it in the game preview later this week. But Mizzou would be like, okay, all the talk's about them. What about us? We're pretty damn good too. And so I think that should be that's obviously Drinkwitz. That's probably the bulletin board. But look, we'll talk about that game more this week. Heck of a win. Heck of a win by Vanderbilt. We're gonna stay. Okay, we're not gonna stay in the SEC. Let's just go to this quickly. IU destroys Michigan State. Mendoza, incredible. IU, they stay rolling. Okay. Rutgers 56-10. Rutgers is still a very good football team. They stay rolling. Now, let's go to let's see here. Georgia. Georgia finds a way. The resilience of this football team is incredible. They find a way to win 43-35. This was a shootout. Ole Miss had them. Ole Miss was up 9 in the fourth, 35-26, and Georgia just outscores them 17-0 in that quarter. I mean, Chambliss, I thought, played very good. I thought early they were able to get a lot in the flat. Georgia they didn't get stopped until like what was it? That one early in the fourth. They didn't get stopped. They didn't get stopped. I mean, Ole Miss wasn't getting a stop either. And I guess they held them to that field goal before half. That was the stop. But in this football game, you just have to look at it. There was nothing that I don't think either team could have done all day better on the offensive side. Maybe you could say Ole Miss could have ran the ball better, but I still feel like they against a good Georgia front, they ran a decently well. Stribling had the 175-yard catch, obviously for Ole Miss. Look, Ole Miss offensively great through three quarters. In the fourth, Georgia just hunkered down. Those DBs hunkered down. The cardiac dogs is what they are right now. Gunner playing through an oblique. 26 of 31 for 281, four passing touchdowns. He also had a rushing touchdown. He ran for 59 yards. Georgia ran for 221 on the ground. Again, we talked about it in the season. Said Georgia's going to be able to run the football. And that's what they do. This football team, they just play so hard. They never quit. The resilience of this football team, it never fails. They are so dang on resilient. It's incredible. They don't die. Georgia says, look, and it's not like vintage Georgia. They're not as deep as those other teams, but it's the heart of the champion. Like, I truly think the Georgia of last year, they don't win at Tennessee. They don't win this football game right here. They don't win it, but they did. But this year's Georgia wins that football game. In Georgia, they're beatable. And you can say, well, look, it's going to catch up to you. But I mean, right now they keep winning. And look, they're on a bye, so they're gonna have a chance. They're gonna clean some things up. It's a bye, and then it's the rivalry game in Jacksonville against Florida, who just fired their coach, Billy Napier. Yeah, they're gonna have to clean up the first half because I don't know why they start so slow defensively. I don't get it. I mean, you go back to the Auburn game. Auburn basically batters you for basically two quarters, and then they just kind of implode. You made adjustments, you dominate them in the second half, but they also kind of imploded. That is something that did happen. Then you watch them against then you watch them against Tennessee, and it's sort of a similar story. It's 21. It's 21-7 early. Aguilar's dialed. They're looking like an NFL offense, and you just slowly but surely walk them down, walk them down, walk them down. Georgia, it'll be ugly. They'll beat you that way. They'll beat you in a shootout. They've won two of them. They can also dominate you like they did against Kentucky. This league is really tough. Florida's got a lot of talent. So coming out the bye, that's not an easy game. We'll see how they respond with the coach being gone. But yeah, Georgia, again, they just find ways to win. It's the championship DNA. You can't describe it any better than that. It's championship DNA. It's genuinely unbelievable how they are able to continue to get knocked down and knocked down. And you think knocked out, but they keep getting up. We're going to get up. We're going to continue to fight. We didn't hear a bell. We're going to get up and we're going to fight you and we're going to swing and we're going to swing. It's incredible. And that's to me is what I took away. There are a few I try to stay as neutral in terms of when it's not Indiana, because obviously, so I try to stay as neutral as game. I love watching this Georgia team this year because they just fight. I love watching football teams in general that just have a lot of heart and they fight no matter what the score is or the situation. We're just gonna fight you to the end. Those are really the football teams I love to watch, and Georgia has probably been one of my favorite football teams to watch this year. In terms of Ole Miss are fine. I think you're a college football playoff team as long as you don't have a collapse like you did last year. Look, at Oklahoma's a tough game, but then after that you got South Carolina, Citadel, Florida at home, and then you have the Egg Bowl game at Mississippi. You got to win. If you can't go to the playoff with those 5 games left, you're laying you down. You just can't. So yeah, I think they're a playoff team. They're still really good. They're gonna have to figure out the defense. Obviously, look, Brent Venables' defense really good. Oklahoma took care of business against South Carolina. I bombed that pick, but yeah, Ole Miss, they'll be fine. That's still a really good football team. But Lane said it. They missed a golden opportunity, and that's really all. And that's really all that was. Wow. What a day, man. What a day. What a day. Jam-packed show here. Let's go to Arizona State. You kidding me? Arizona State finds a way. Texas Tech backup quarterback. Yeah, I get it. But they find a way. Dillingham's they make the Big 12 interesting. Arizona State beats Texas Tech 26-22 in a wild football game. Look, Will Hammond is the backup quarterback. Look, Texas Tech's offense couldn't do much of anything for most of the game. And you kind of expect that with a backup quarterback. But late, it seemed like they found something. Obviously, late they needed a big punt return to put them in position for the last one to take the lead. But overall, Arizona State controlled this game for essentially for 3 quarters, and then in the fourth it got crazy. But look, Arizona State, look, they're still a good football team. Look, they were able. Look, Jordan Tyson, stud, one of the best receivers in the country, or at least underrated, stud. Levitt played great. Again, against that Texas Tech front, couldn't really run the ball. 2.1 yards a carry. They tried. You just couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. Because that Texas Tech front is very good. But now the Big 12 it becomes interesting. And look, can Arizona State get back to the title game? That is, with their schedule, I think potentially. Look, they have Houston, and then you're at home, and then you're at Iowa State. Iowa State, look, they're coming off the 2 losses. I'm not going to sleep on them that much. Look, this conference is weird. Look, Cincinnati's 4-0 right now, and they're a 6-1 football team. But they could easily go out there and lose at home to Baylor or on the road at Utah. I mean, they still play BYU at TCU. Cincinnati, I don't know how much I trust them to get there. Look, BYU still, we'll talk about the Holy War. Yes, don't change the name. It's the Holy War between Utah and BYU. But, because I have some thoughts on Utah, how I just kind of whiffed on that. But, yeah, man, the Big 12, I said it. I said I love the Big 12. They're my favorite conference to watch because on a week to week basis, you don't know what you're going to get. Arizona State just got blown out by 32 points at Utah, literally a week prior. I I know Levitt wasn't playing, but I don't know how much Levitt would have fixed that, because that was bad in all three phases. But then they come back. Texas Tech has blown everybody out by 24 plus points. Everybody out. On the road, at home, didn't matter. Then they come in. I thought they were far and away the best team in the Big 12. I think they still are, but I think that gap has closed a little bit. I know with the backup quarterback, it was tough. They come in and they beat. They come in and they lose. First close game tested. They showed a lot of fight, came back, but lost. Again, this conference the conference just never disappoints. Again, it could be like last year, where it's just a whole bunch of chaos late in the season, and we're getting to that point where these in the conferences is chaos, and I straight love it. Like, how great is this sport, man? I said it. I said Big 12's on crack. I put that in my notes because the Big 12, from a week to week basis, you don't know what you're gonna get. Heck, Colorado just upset Iowa State last week. Like, you don't know what you're gonna. BYU, okay, people will say best team in the conference right now because they did win the Holy War, which again we will get to. They could easily go out and lose at Iowa State this upcoming week. They could easily do that. Again, this conference, this conference is so wacky and it's so great, and I love it. I just love it. So yeah, Big 12 is weird. It's weird. Let's go. Texas A&M escapes Arkansas. A&M, look, giving up 42 to not great, but look, they find ways to beat you. That they've won in every single way you could imagine this season. A sloppy game, we win that. Defensive game where our offense isn't great in terms of scoring, but our defense can really just just stymie you against Auburn. That happened. They did that. And then you go to South Bend, Notre Dame draws 40, you still find a way to win. Tricky game against Arkansas, playing inspired. Taylor Green played great football, and you survive in a shootout. Look, they ran the ball for 268. I would think against them playing LSU, that would be a concern, but they can't run the ball. So, yeah, they ran the ball for 217 themselves, but they did in a conventional way, sweeps. Wasn't, QB draws between the tackles. Did it in every way you want. Marcel Reed is a straight stud. That's really all I got in this game. Aggies, they just finding ways to beat you. A lot of people thought this would be the A&M game where you go, ha, there it is. Their same old A&M. It's not. It hasn't happened. And people are like, oh, it hasn't happened yet. You're saying yet, but will it happen? Is the question. And A&M gets it done. Okay, now let's go to this Texas. We'll talk about this for a second. Texas, you're not serious. I'm sorry. You're not. You are not serious. You can't be. Okay, Kentucky, probably the worst team in the conference. Let's be honest. But young quarterback. I've seen this game so many times with Kentucky over the years. It's hilarious. Young quarterback that they have, they just gonna sit on the football, try to control the time of possession, hope the defense really just locks you down and steal one at the end in like a low scoring ugly game. Everybody's had it. Everybody's had that game in the SEC, it seems like. Whether you are Florida or Georgia, it just seems like that game has happened. Struggling in Lexington. Arch was brutal. The offense was brutal. Texas offense makes me want to claw my eyes out. I can't watch it. It's just even last week when they beat Oklahoma, brutal at times, brutal. This offense had. I genuinely have not watched a Texas game this year where their offense has just been not a brutal. It was a brutal watch. I believe they got moved down because of how poorly they played in the rankings. Yeah, I mean, look, they're 5-2. Look, winning. It doesn't have to look pretty. Don't have to look pretty. Doesn't have to. You just got to continue to find ways to do it, and they did. So look, props to them. It's just that offense. That's offense. If they can't figure it out, that's gonna prevent them from going anywhere. Uh, 7 o'clock games. Let's do it. Tennessee at Alabama. This I don't want to look. Essentially, I don't want to. Games are usually not one play games, but this was a one play game. It was the Xavier Brown pick six. It's 16-7. Tennessee to end is. It's. I think there was like 8 seconds on the clock. If they get in, it's gonna. If they get in and get a touchdown, it's gonna be probably 16-14 going into the break. And look, you didn't play. You didn't play great, but you're only down two. What happened here was that pick six to Xavier and Brown that changed the game. That salted it away. That put them up, even though it was 2 scores. They ended up getting it to 3 scores, and the game was never really in danger. Look, Tennessee fought. They did, but they did fight, but it just wasn't enough. Again, Alabama they running the ball. They ran for 120, but again, they run it in unconventional ways. Whether it's sweep, whether they try to run maybe some duo, they use a whole lot of motion, run outside zone, some inside zone. They just run it in conventional way. So even though it's not like 1950s, okay, we're gonna get 120 between the tackles, but we're gonna use other ways. Our receivers are gonna get some yardage. Our backs again. Alabama doesn't rush the ball well. They haven't, but the difference between them and a team like LSU is LSU continues to try to go between the tackles. I was like, it just doesn't work. Alabama is using their receivers to get some rushing yards now, and I think that's crucial. They did have a bit of the slow start, but when Ty Simpson got dialed, he was dialed. And when he's dialed, he's as good as anybody in college football. I've said this. He's as good as anybody. I mean, he's a gamer, straight gamer. He is, and he continues to prove to me why I think him and Mendoza are the two most pro-ready prospects. Mendoza was great against Michigan State. Simpson, another good performance, and also he's protecting the football. He's got a grasp of the offense. You trust Ty Simpson. You just trust him with the offense. Defensively, for Alabama, look, they still gave up 142 on the ground, but they got a pick six. Look, the defense has improved dramatically from week one. That week one game was just a fluke, considering what Florida State has done. Jeez, it's a fluke. Big time fluke. That game's keeping Norvell in the job. Let's just be honest about it. Look, so Alabama, look, I think they're the best team in the conference. I'd actually put them one and A&M two, funny enough. Even though Bama does have a loss, I do feel like if they played, I would pick Alabama. But I don't think it's clear. I think it's very close. You can do a 1A 1B. I'll listen to that. Again, if Texas A&M is your best team in the SEC, I'm not going to look at you crazy because they have an argument, and I think they are. To me, they're one or two. To me, they're not three. To me, as of right now, they're better than Georgia. It's just kind of what it is. Love Georgia, but I think they're better than Georgia, but by a little bit. But yeah, Bama just continues to roll. Four ranked opponents. They line up the ranked opponents, knock them down. And that's what Alabama did. Tennessee will be fine, still have a chance to be a playoff team, but kind of they just can't put it together in the Heupel era. They just have not been able to put it together. Look, the year with Hendon Hooker, great elite offense, defense was last year, elite defense, offense was Just gotta find a way to put it together at some point. Now let's go to the Holy War. BYU beats Utah. Devon Dampier. I whiffed on Utah. I whiffed on them. It's not because they lost. Just the offense. It just doesn't look anything. I think this is still a very talented team. I think basically from the defensive side of the ball, I think the defense has done a really good job this year, and I thought they did a really good job in this football game. But it's just you can't. Dampier against opponents. I know his stats are going to be like 20, 36, 244, 2 touchdowns. It's just in a pick. But he's just not reading the field, and it's tough for him right now, man. Look, BYU, they ran the ball for 202. BYU just finds ways to beat you. They just find ways. You survive against Arizona, you beat down West Virginia. They just find ways to beat you. But yeah, I thought Utah was going to be in the Big 12 title game. I mean, they still can be, but I thought they were the second best team. They still can be, but I think I whiffed on it. Think I whiffed bad too. So yeah, it's not great on my end, but yeah, look, BYU again, really good. The coach that he's got this program rolling. A second straight 7-0 start. Now, the question is, will they come apart at the seams like they did last year, or and it's or do they make the Big 12 title game? Do they break through and potentially go there and potentially go to the playoff? It's an interesting situation. Got some tough games ahead. Again, at Iowa State. Again, that's a game they could easily drop. I still believe in Rocco Becht. If Iowa State wins that, the Big 12, it's just interesting. Crack. Like crack. So, yeah, BYU beats Utah in the Holy War. Great win. We'll talk about Mizzou and Auburn this real quick, and then we'll close it out with the rankings in Notre Dame, USC. Auburn. I just have one thing from this game. Auburn's offense is it infuriates me because Auburn from an offensive standpoint, it's so bad now. They are wasting a championship level defense. That defense is good. It fights its butt off. It did it against Oklahoma, where your offense again cost you the game. It did it against Georgia, where your offense cost you the game in the second half. It did the same thing against Mizzou. I mean, this defense fights its butt off, and they can't win because we have a head coach that is still calling plays that doesn't have a clue. The Jackson Arnold's just sitting back there waiting to get sacked. You just have to watch Auburn. You just have to watch them. Seriously, you just have to watch them. And you'll know what I'm talking about. It's just so infuriating. Good win for Mizzou. They got next week. We kind of already talked about the message next week, yeah, but they're just infuriating to watch, man. Auburn. All right, Notre Dame. They beat USC and have a good chance to go back to the playoff after starting 0-2, have a favorable schedule left. Look, the story of this game is turnovers and run game. Notre Dame just pummeled them in the run game for one. That's really was a big thing. He just straight pummeled them. Uh look, Carr played well. He was 16 and 1, but he didn't have to do a lot. Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love. Jadarian Price had 87 yards. Jeremiah Love had 24 for 228 and a touchdown. They ran when you run the ball for 300 yards, you're going to win a lot of football games. USC, look, Maeva was not a Maeva. Look, you gotta protect the football in games like these. You just have to. They didn't do it, obviously, and that's what happens. It bit them. Notre Dame, they now 5-2. Look, the rest of the way, if you don't make the playoff and you drop, that's because you dropped one of these games. Shame on you. Did all this work. Yeah, I think their defense getting better at the right time. Jeremiah Love got him the ball a lot. They're working. They're working, man. And Notre Dame, really good. Marcus Freeman doing a really good job. All right, let's go to this top 25. Let's start. Let's start from number one. Number one's Ohio State. Number two is Indiana. Number three is A&M. Number four is Alabama. Number five is Georgia. Got the top five completely right. Six is Oregon. Seven is Georgia Tech. Switch them because Georgia Tech has a better resume. Eight is Ole Miss. Nine is Miami. 10 is Vandy. Fine with that. I think you can switch Miami and Ole Miss. I think you can do that. 11 is BYU. 12 is Notre Dame. Oklahoma's 13. Texas Tech 14. Mizzou 15. Virginia 16. Tennessee 17. I switched Tennessee and Virginia personally. 18 is South Florida. 19 is Louisville. 20 is LSU. 21 is Cincinnati. 22 is Texas. Why are they here? 23 is Illinois. 24 is Arizona State. 25 is Michigan. Don't know how Minnesota's not a top 25 team after what they did to Nebraska, and they fouled off, like, I believe, was it 4 in a row? It's okay. Okay. Yeah. Top 25. I like it. I actually think it's very solid. Obviously, I would make some tweaks, but overall, I think this might be their best week yet. It's been a solid week. Solid. All right, this has been it for the Don't Argue with the Facts podcast, my college football week 8 reactions. I will be back tomorrow with my NFL week 7 reactions because boy, oh boy, wild week. We gotta talk about it. But all right, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And until the next time, see ya.